Come on. Let's start. Yeah. Is that just start or not? Wait. What? Why is it showing here but not? Okay. It's weird. There we go. Now I can see it on my end. There we go. Okay. Very good. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Finally got that going. All right. So thank you all for being here. Sorry for a little bit of delay there. Starting the Zoom. I appreciate all you coming, either both on Zoom or in person. I first want to reintroduce the GCEA negotiations team. That's Amy Brandt, Amber Vigil, and then Juliana Valles. She's actually teaching summer school right now, so she couldn't be here today. I also want to thank the GCEA executive team, Lindley Anderson, Ronnie Knight, Russ Tidwell, Connie De Leon. I wanted to thank them for their support throughout this process as well, and KNEA and GCEA support throughout the process. A lot of the resources we used came directly through KNEA, at least a starting spot for us. So for that. I also want to thank those of you who reached out to us with their concerns, questions. That really helps us figure out what direction we need to take when it comes to negotiations. And when you reached out to the board, that also helped tremendously as well. I will also mention that I think the board made concerted effort to address a lot of those concerns and questions that not only us, the negotiators, had, but people who reached out to them. They tried to address those as best they can. So negotiations, neither side got everything they want. That's just kind of the grind of negotiations. But I think we left with a tentative agreement that is strong, if not, it's still imperfect, but it's still strong. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that. With obviously the big item, salary schedule. So for the salary schedule, we are increasing the base pay from $45,000 this year to $47,000 next year. In addition to that, we made some adjustments to the steps. So the annual steps you get for experience, those steps down the salary schedule, each one is worth at least $600 going forward. Previously, those steps were $567, and they've been there for as long as we can come figure out. And that was an important thing. Those years, hopefully not coming up soon, but those years where base pay is unable to be raised or only raised a little bit, the only thing we got is those annual steps. So those are important. Longevity pay, I added this. This is not from Tuesday's presentation. I added this in because I didn't get some questions on this, so I just wanted to be clear. Longevity pay Nothing happened to that, no changes whatsoever. So longevity pay will continue as normal. The one thing that did change is premium pay. Premium pay was funded through ESSERS. Last year's negotiated agreement included premium pay of $2,000, but that was only for 1 year. It had a sunset clause in it. And ESSERS funding is going away, and so there will be no premium pay. This is a different article in our negotiated agreement, but I included it on this slide because it's a piece of the compensation package. Those they're hard to talk about without also talking about infringement. I also want to put it out there because there were some questions about it in my email from last week and people not quite understanding. So that was on me with poor phrasing. The district provided health insurance benefit. That's your monthly benefit that the district pays towards your health insurance premiums each month. Is going to increase $70 from $830 to $900. The way it phrased in the email last week made it seem we were jumping from $70 to $900, and that's not the case. It's up, increasing $70 probably to $900. That is money that does not come out of your check each month or anything like that. That is money, additional money the district contributes on your behalf towards the health fund to help pay for health insurance premiums. So here's the salary schedule. Salary schedule with the on the 10-year agreement. If the agreement is ratified, this will be the salary schedule for next year. I didn't include it in the email I sent out earlier today. In addition, there's obviously when we talk about salaries, supplemental salary schedule is part of that. First key piece to remember on the supplemental salary schedule is that is indexed. What that means is each supplemental, regardless of your S1 or S18, it is a percentage of the base. The percentage is lower or higher depending on where you're on the supplemental schedule. But when the base number changes, so do all the supplementals. So all those percentages ripple throughout the supplemental salary schedule and increase along with the base. We did add 3 different positions. So those are the elementary student council, intermediate student council, and the leader and meet coach for the district. Each one of those was added at S2. In addition, it's not supplemental, but it's a stipend, so we're going in roughly the same spot in the negotiated agreement. Coach and sponsors who sponsor or coach a national event outside of the contract year. So it's past your, June 1st contract date. Those coaches sponsor that eligible for $500 stipend to take their students or athletes or whoever with them to these national events. All right, here's some sections on dealing with how much certain sections, that sort of thing. So professional personnel, extra duty, that's the all-encompassing term for a bunch of different duties throughout the district. We increased the breakfast lunch duty to $12 per hour, and then we increased some of the harder to fill positions in the district. These are harder because there's kind of a lot of pressure. That's timer score for like a basketball games, that sort of thing. And the public adjusts to $13 per hour. In addition, we eliminated some unused duties. Now, they're unused in name only. You'll notice that most of these are track positions, pole vault judge, high jump judge. We no longer call them that. District hasn't called them that for years and years. And they call all the people just Marshall. And so because they're all Marshall, we eliminated the unused names. Marshall's still in there. Another unused one is the family engagement event manager. So that one has been gone unused for several years, as the teacher told us that was nesting. So nesting, I'm going to do my best to explain this as clearly as possible, though there is a lot of math, and I am not the math person, as most people know at this point. But when a certified employee is nesting, what that means is you're absorbing another teacher's class. If you are a second grade teacher and one of your second grade hallmates or whatever is absent for the day, you can't fill that position with a sub. Well, those students have to go somewhere. So often what happens is the principal of that building will split that class up into thirds or half or whatever works best for the building, and then give each other teacher in the building, not each, but 3 other teachers in the building, those students to next for the day to have them for regular class. Well, last year we were able to add nesting language in to start paying for that. Previously, if you absorbed another teacher's class, there was no compensation for that. We clarified the language this year to make it clear for how much you will be paid, to make it easier for buildings to do this. So if you take a third of another teacher's class, let's say there's 18 student class, you take 6 of them, you will get paid 1/4 of the certified daily rate of a sub. You'll get 1/3 of that for each hour. So a quarter of the daily rate of the sub is $32.50. You'll get a third of that per hour. So it's roughly $11. So $11 per hour, you're absorbing those students. So if you have them for 4 hours a day, that's $44 to claim and be paid for. Hopefully that's a little bit clearer than but yeah, well, wait till the end for the questions. And that's true for if you take a half of a class, you get half of that quarter of the daily sub rate per hour. And if you take an entire class, for whatever reason that happens, you'll get the full 100%, $32.50 per hour you have. Yep. Yep. Let's. Oh,
yeah. So each teacher gets.
No, I was gonna say let's talk about that if possible, but yeah. Okay, so attendance incentive. So the teacher attendance incentive basically said if you miss 1 day or fewer for the school year, you get a payment at the end of the school year. Last year was $500. The negotiations last year we increased it to $1,000. We're going to go ahead and remove that for a variety of reasons. The two largest: one, inequitability of access to that attendance incentive. Most teachers communicate to us through survey that they would never be able to access that. Two, it kind of incentivizes staff to show up to school sick. We're not sure that's great either. So we did remove that attendance incentive. A couple other changes: salary schedule or how people are placed on the salary schedule. So previously, all master's degree placed you on the master's degree column, and MS plus 0. Well, some master's degrees have 36 graduate hours required. Some master's degrees have like 60 graduate hours required. We thought that the extra education that those extra 24 hours took to get that 60-hour master's degree needed to be rewarded in some way. So any master's degree above 36 credit hours will now be able to be used towards further movement along the salary. So you go to MS plus 15 or MS plus 30, depending on how those hours, those extra hours are credited to you. But that'll be additional movement. You won't just place masters. You'll be able to take the first 36 hours, and then whatever you're gonna do on top of that, credit that through like PD points. This next item is not a negotiated agreement. So I kind of debated even putting it in here, but it's not a negotiated agreement because no type of employees is, and that's how your experience outside of the school district when you are a new hire is applied towards your placement on the salary schedule. So previously, if teachers came in, they get half year for every year of experience this district of teaching. Nurses, that was not the case. They could only apply experience that was in schools. So if you're a nurse in a different school district, that applied. But if you were a nurse in a hospital or whatever, that experience did not apply. And since that experience directly corresponds to your experience here in school, you're still doing the same job. We thought that should be recognized. The district has made a commitment to go ahead and recognize that experience at the same rate, half year credited for the salary schedule for every year of experience. Hours of my work, there's no changes to contract hours whatsoever. So 166.5 student contact days, 4 parent-teacher conference days. We did have changes to how the parent-teacher conference days work. We'll talk about that in here in a little bit. 7 in-service days, 4 work days. Also in this article, we were able to agree on plan time for early childhood center Garfield. So early childhood plan time was not delineated in the contract whatsoever. It was kind of sort of assumed that they were part of the elementary plan level, but the way elementary schools work and the way the early childhood center works, where it's half day AM, half day PM, didn't quite match. So to alleviate some of those concerns, to make sure that is outlined for not only the teacher but the district on what's expected for plan time, we were able to put that in the negotiation agreement. The issue that we ran into is because of that AM PM schedule and how the plan time is issued at early childhood center, we did have to average that out as a 2-week basis. All the other levels, high school, middle school, intermediate school, elementary school, those all averaged on a weekly basis. The early childhood would be on a 2-week basis. The reason for that is because most of the plan time is given to teachers through music and movement when their students go to music and movement for the day. But that's either Monday, Wednesday, Friday 1 week, and then the next week would be Tuesday, Thursday, or vice versa. So some weeks they'll actually get more plan time, next week they'll get less. So average that over a 2-week basis, it matches exactly elementary's plan time. 450 minutes of individual plan time, 240 of team plan time. I believe that's the correct number. If not, pretty sure that is. If not, I'll correct it. But it's really close to that. It matches. You just take elementary's weekly plan time, double it, and that's what they should get on a 2-week basis. Okay, so parent-teacher conferences that I just talked about. First big change. Emergency leave used to be required to get superintendent approval. So if parent-teacher conference day comes around, you're sick, you got to put in emergency leave. That still had to be approved, even though you're already home. You're sick. It still had to be approved. And the way that was approved through different buildings often was inequitable. So emergency leave is no longer required to be approved by the superintendent. To be clear, personal leave still is. I should start with, by the way, just to clarify, PTO was talked about a lot this negotiation season. We did not end up agreeing to PTO. So we are in the same from previously with some changes. So yeah, PTO was not agreed to this summer. So just to be clear. So for the language changes, also parent-teacher conferences, previously, if whatever the district designates, whatever the calendar committee designates as 2 days of parent-teacher conferences in the fall and spring, parent-teacher conferences, no matter how long, had to be held on those days, physically held on those days. We did go and remove that requirement. For some buildings, they were coming in for 2 hours and 20 minutes on one of the days just to meet that requirement. And now that building doesn't have to do that. Now they still can choose to do that as a building, but they don't have to. The other change to the language requirements is previously said each building may flexibly schedule up to 5 hours of conference time outside the regular day, anytime prior to the scheduled conference week. Now they shall schedule those flexibly schedule those. Now what that looks like is up to the building still. And so this is where I will try to, be a non-biased here, but we'll impress upon you how important it is to communicate with your building leadership team, communicate with your admin team on your building. If you have ideas of what this should look like, start talking with them early. When you get to the building in August, start communicating with them about that. So that way they can, you can have some input on what that looks like. To help with that, we did add other language in there that requires building teams to survey their teachers and their certified employees, not just teachers, certified employees in the building. So each building shall survey certified staff to gather input on how to schedule parent-teacher conferences. Building leadership team shall create the survey and provide at least 3 options for the staff to vote upon. Those results will be reported to the building site council, which make the final determination. So the site council still makes the final determination, but the building leadership team makes a suggestion to the site council in terms of that. So hopefully this results in certified employees having as much say as possible in what parent-teacher conferences looks like for them and what works for their building, because what works up here at the high school is probably not going to work at Baltimore. And we want to make sure that buildings still have the flexibility to figure out what works best for them, their students, their certified employees. So back going to the PTO part of it, as I said, we did not agree to that, but oh no, we're not there yet. I'm sorry. Calendar committee. So calendar committee can now recommend for board approval calendars 2 years in advance. Previously, it was only the upcoming year. You couldn't approve calendars previous to that. So now the district can go, the calendar committee can go to the board, say, okay, this is what we would like for next year, as well as the following year. And the board can approve that. However, it's still subject to negotiation. Negotiations changes that, then we gotta go back in and change those calendars. But this does allow some further future planning, hopefully, for both district certified employees, the community. I know for the community, it was actually hard for them to open up the big pool when our calendar changed a little bit and stuff like that. So that's a change we had. As far as the calendar committee, we added language in to clarify if you fill a vacated role in the calendar committee, you serve the rest of that remainder of that term, 3-year terms. But previously, it was understood after your term, you would take a year off before you can serve on the calendar committee again. Well, when you filled a vacated term, maybe sometimes it was only for a year. Did we still want you to take a year off? Did we not want you to take a year off? So I clarified that if you fill a vacated term, whether that's for 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, whatever, you can take it. You'll just fill out the rest of that term, but then you're still eligible right away to continue in the committee for a different term. That'll leave. So changes to the way it works. You'll now get, previously it was 10 emergency leave days, 2 personal leave days. It'll be now 9 and 3. And we made that change for a variety of reasons. But the big one's at the bottom here. So we removed the life happens day and the superintendent discretion day. So both of those days saw some confusion how they're applied at building level and whether they were extra days or not. So I'll talk about the life happens day. That is not an extra day. The way the life happens day is kind of a flexible day. It kind of makes you use or lets you use an emergency day as if it was a personal day. So for me, to give my example, this year I did apply for Life Happens Day because my water heater exploded in the basement. I had to take care of that for the day. So I was able to use emergency day as a personal day, but it was still, it came out my emergency leave bin. So it was not an extra day. It was still from my emergency. The superintendent's discretion day, that was sort of, no, it definitely was an extra personal day that you could apply for as if needed, but the way it was applied was inequitable across buildings. It caused confusion about what qualifies as a superintendent discretion day. Like, does this work? And then when teachers were told no, but then this other teacher got it over here in this other building, it caused some strikes on that one. So to help alleviate some of the conflict, not only between admin and staff, but between staff and staff, we did eliminate that as well, hoping that we did make up for that a little bit with the 9 emergency and 3 personal. To go with leave, we added language guaranteeing that if you are hurt by a patron or student on the job, that you will not be charged emergency leave days if you have to miss school for whatever reason. If you get a concussion and you have to stay home because of that, you will not be charged emergency leave days. That's now guaranteed up until a workman's comp comes in, and then it's a different process between workman's comp and how those days are charged. Also, leave section C. This had to do with extended leave, health reason, extended leave, infant care, or adoption. The language that was in there is actually more stringent than FMLA required. It was just a leftover language from years and years and years ago. FMLA required more than that language was allowing. And so we always had to follow FMLA anyway, because that's federal, we have to follow that law. So we just replaced those sections with FMLA language that we were already following. All right. So this is what I'm gonna pause for just a second. If you remember nothing else from this presentation, that's totally okay, because my students never remember anything either. Remember this, I need as many people's help as possible in communicating this to buildings. So if you have a friend group in your building, you're on the building leadership team, please take some of this information, jot it down, take this slideshow that I emailed you, you show it to them or whatever, and your first meeting is back in August. Do the best you can. GCEA as well as the district will do our best and communicate information but sick bank has major changes to it, and people need to know. So, first, certified employees must now donate a day in order to be able to withdraw from the sick bank. Okay. Big reason for that is we were trying to increase the amount of days that are eligible. Most years, vast majority of years that we had a sick bank, it was done, if not birth. So that made it really difficult for those who had a catastrophic injury or were giving birth in April or whatever to have those days available. It never happened, or at least very rarely. The date you'll have to decide by that is October 1st. The district will send out some type of survey. You'll denote to them whether you will donate a day. You'll tell them, yes, I'll donate my day. Then you have access to the sick bank. If you do not, you no longer have access to the sick bank for that calendar year. Another big change that we appreciated was all bank days withdrawn are now worth 100% of that employee's daily rate. Previously, it was only 75%. So that was another piece of it. You know, people, yeah, you got a week covered, but I don't know about you, but I can't live on 75% of my salary. So we increased that 100%. With that change, however, previously the board contributed 120 days per year. The board will now contribute 95. And that math roughly equals the same from 120 down to 95 days, but at 100% of the average daily rate. So that was the change there. So previously, when the district gave 120 days, employees could donate, but it happened very rarely. So usually each year we had 120 days total. This year, or going forward, you can have 125 days per semester. Now this depends on how many certified employees donate, but it's about half is what other districts do. If that's true for us, we will get to this number. So 125 days per semester, up to that will be available for people to use. That alleviates some of the concerns on it being done in February, because it resets in January, and people who have catastrophic injury in April or whatever, they probably will still have access now because we're separating those days. All right, parental, now another big change that I'm gonna talk more about, parental leave is now eligible for bank withdrawal, and that has an entirely different set of rules. So I'm talking just about parental leave. Yes, you still must have donated a day in order to be eligible for parental leave. But if you apply prior to the birth of a child or adoption of a child under the age of 6 or within 20 teacher contract days following the date of the birth or adoption, you can get up to 5 days of parental leave. The idea of the 5 days, obviously we would like for it to be more, but the idea of the 5 days is that bridges the gap between when you need to be off and the short-term disability that most people who give birth have. And when we have short-term disability, you get that money after 5 days of missing work. So we were hoping to bridge that gap. Now, to be clear, this is parental leave, so it doesn't only have to be the person giving birth, but that was the idea of the 5 days. An employee does not, really keeping here, does not have to be out of emergency leave or personal leave days. Previously, the illness and disability bank, and it still is, for illness and disability, you have to be out of emergency leave and personal leave. That's not the case for parental leave. And of course, the reasoning for that is we want you to have those sick days to go take your baby to doctor appointments or get yourself taken care of or whatever. So you need those days still. And so that's the whole point of parental leave. We wanted to make sure that was part of it. So the illness disability part of it, must have done at least 1 day. And all the other rules are the same as previously. And I posted up there all other, I don't know what, certified employee, I don't know what all of them. The certified employee must have exhausted all their community, emergency, and personal leave days. That was the same as before. I want to make sure the distinction is clear now. If it's illness or disability, you do have to be out of emergency. Other changes, but do have an impact on how this works. Sick bank committee will establish guidelines for bank use now. Previously, sick bank committee were supposed to meet and make decisions on people's health and whether they were eligible for the sick bank. And so we took that process away. And now the sick bank committee will set guidelines for how this is supposed to use. And if an applicant, once they apply, the application will be judged against those guidelines. And the simple yes or no, yes, you qualify, or no, you do not because of this specific guideline. That's the goal, at least. All unused days at the end of each year will be contributed to the health fund to help offset any insurance premium raises next year, or at least some of them. We're not entirely sure how much the health is going to be worth or not, because we've never had this system before, and no district really has this system. So we're not entirely sure how this works. This year, for whatever reason, we will have a lot of remaining days this year. And so if this year happened again next, there'll be a pretty significant increase in the health fund for next year. And that would help, so that way the following year, we don't have to raise that health insurance benefit to $70 a month. Maybe it could be $60 or $50 a month, and that adds up over time. And so, but again, most years it was completely depleted. And if that's the case, then there will be no additional money towards the health fund. Also, if donations are so large that it's more than the $250 per year, $125 per semester, each of those donated will also go towards the health fund. Sunset language, what that means is this is only for next year. We wanted to put that sunset language in. We wanted to see how it works. We wanted to see, hey, do we need to change the dates? Do we need to change how many days are being donated? How many days can be taken? How is this working for us in the district? So all that means is it requires us to discuss it again at negotiations next year and make sure we either approve it for final use going, or if we never come to an agreement on it, it reverts back to the previous system. Article 6, real quick change. Previously, we're going to get a master's degree up to $5,000 reimbursed from the district for approved courses. We increased that to $7,500. All the same rules apply. You sign a contract basically for 5 years, saying I'll stay here for 5 years. If you leave after 3, 2/5 of that money, whatever you took, has to be paid back to the district. If you leave after 4 years, 1/5, so on and so on. Another big change. Likely doesn't affect very many people, except for the GCEA executive team. But there are major changes to this that everybody should be aware of. So previously, the grievance procedure was 4 levels. First was an appeal to the principal, the building principal, or whoever committed the potential grievance. Level 2 was appeal to GCEA, and GCEA had its own committee from GCEA members to hear the appeal, to hear the grievance, and render a decision on it. But then there was a 3rd level, appeal to the superintendent of the district, and then finally a 4th level, appeal to the board, the president of the board. We removed those top 2 levels. There's no longer an appeal to the superintendent, no longer an appeal to the president of the board. That level 2 is now the deciding level. Now, it's no longer run completely by GCEA. So the way that works is level 2 will be 3 GCEA appointees, 3 district appointees, and then the 7th member of that committee will be decided through an interview process, essentially. So 3 GCEA selections will be submitted to the district. District will submit 3 to us, and then we'll kind of haggle over that in August, decide an order for how those people might be placed in the grievance process. Then it's just on a matter of availability for those people. So if we have a grievance coming in October and our first selection is not available in October, we'll go to our 2nd selection, 3rd selection, so on and so forth, until we get a 7th member. Once that happens, so the committee will meet, we'll hear the grievance, and then whatever decision that the grievance committee finds is final, right? So any changes that need to be made for how something functions or whatever, that's the decision of that grievance committee is final. The one key distinction there, though, is if there's financial remedies, if someone was supposed to get paid and they weren't getting paid, right? And the grievance committee says, hey, no, they needed to be paid for this work they were doing. That would still have to go to the board to be approved because money being spent. But if no one, it's not an appeal to the board. It is just a, here's the, here's the grievance committee's decision, send it to the board, and the board, will need to, discuss and approve that. Yes. All right, so Article 11, professional employee appraisal procedure. If you ever get a conference report, Form 57, that's how some people know it, basically written up. Previously, you had your principal or whoever the admin who wrote the conference report had to follow up with you within 10 business days. Problem with that follow-up is supposed to have, you're supposed to bring to that conference report, what progress have you made? Well, that's really difficult to prove in 2 weeks. So, and it was difficult on the admin side to do that within 10 business days as well. So we increased that and clarified how many days. Is it district business days? Is it like federal holidays not count? Like what are we talking about here? So it's now 30 teacher contract days. Teachers are meant to be working that day, whether that's a work day or student contact day. That counts as one of the 30 days. Non-renewal certified employees changes links to best practice. Previously, it said reason for non-renewal shall not be stated in written or verbal form. But the district was already doing that, especially in cases like teachers were not passing the praxis. And if they didn't pass the praxis, they had to do it. There's no wiggle room there. So they would communicate that to the teacher. Hey, this is why you're non-renewed, pass the practice. Right. And so we changed the language there to match that practice. Other smaller revisions, grammar, capitalization, terms, consistency revisions throughout the negotiation agreement. You'll see it, there's an example at the bottom. All changes will now be accompanied by an adoption revision date, so that, for example, that sick bank language they made, we're going to put an adopted June 2024, right? That this is a change that was made then. Right now, we don't know how long some things have been in there because there's no revision dates. Obviously, it's agreed to every year, but we don't know when it was first agreed to, when it was revised, that sort of thing. We also standardized grammar for gender language, change his, her, or he, her, or his, her to their. So every reference, it would say like the superintendent or his, her designee, superintendent or their designee. Now. Then this kind of goes up with the terms consistency. All instances of reference to staff covered by negotiated agreement will be certified employees. Previously, it said teacher. A lot of times, it also said professional teacher, professional employee, a whole bunch of different terms. Problem is, like, this covers a whole bunch of people besides teachers, counselors, nurses, physical therapists, occupational therapists, social workers. Like, it covers a whole bunch of people. So certified employee is the term we will go on with there. Ratification voting was already sent out on Tuesday. Should have got text or email. If you did not, please let me know. I can forward you the link. We opened it on Tuesday. We're keeping it open until June 25th, 2 full weeks. I'm at 5 p.m. At least. That's if we meet quorum. We'll close it then if we meet quorum. And quorum means you have to have a half of our certified employees eligible to vote plus one. We have 468 certified employees eligible to vote, meaning they haven't retired, they're not long-term subs and stuff like that. They're not admin. We have 468, so half that's 234 plus one. So 235 of eligible votes for the vote to be legitimate. Once we meet that, it means whatever vote happens, whether that's yes or no, that's the final decision. If it's no, that's the work table. If it's yes, contrary to ratified, we'll go get that, language put in there, changed, updated. Yeah, so this is what we're talking about. Questions on the Zoom. Yes.
I know that there are restrictions on like selling back things based on how many you have. I can't remember, are there restrictions on how many days you have to have?
No. Yeah, correct. Yeah. So likely if you're going to donate, that actually means you have 8 emergency leave days, 3 personal leave days at the beginning of the year. To be clear, but yes.
Class size, so like, if they gave one student from that class.
Yes, but it would be 1/20th or whatever that size that class is, those of the salary, but yes. Correct. Correct. The district, as part of negotiations, communicated as best they could that they have told principals do the very best to keep it to split class into thirds or fourths, not trying to do halves or not trying to do six, because that makes it difficult not only on the certified staff but also EFP to figure that out. So they're trying to keep it to a third or fourth depending on the class size.
Percentage vested into your class.
That's a very good question. How will the certified staff communicate what percentage of students were put into that class? Okay, so your principal would tell them. Yes. Thank you. Let's see if there's any. Yes.
Yeah, so this year will be allowed to start the 11. And then we did not talk about the but again, it's the same, like currently it's the 5 down to 8 again. So up to use 3 or something. But yeah, you'll be allowed to start. It's not only time that I have students, it's not my job. But I got full pilot this year, and then there's no compensation.
Yeah, there was definitely talk about that in GCA. I'll answer that part of it. We're definitely talking about that. The issue we ran into is what language makes it clear on how each individual person should be handled. But it was definitely something we talked about. And then I'll let Drew answer.
On our side, we restrict our principals from taking free time, but any time also.
So essentially what he's saying, but I think, Drew, correct me if I'm wrong, your duties, as outlined, those are your duties for that day. They can change those duties as part of your, job description basically for the day. They can change their duties as needed, and that is accurate. And if they do so, you are being paid for that time. It's just a different duty now.
Good talk about making sure that.
That's the Yeah, maybe there's something with nesting on that one. Potentially. Now, the way it works with Watson, I'll just know this. She does have a designated plan time. They were able to outline that. So anytime she subs on that plan time, which is usually that time, that she is compensated for that plan time. So yeah, I would say step number one, make sure you get a designated plan time. That's untouchable. If they do touch it, compensation. And then second part of that is if even if there's not a set plan time schedule, make sure that you are having throughout the week equals up to whatever level of plan time you're supposed to get on an individual and team basis. And average that out. And if you're not getting that, that's an issue that we can absolutely solve. Yeah. It's specials, librarians, those things. It's something we talked about a lot, but didn't get to, unfortunately.
Levi, I've got to speak on.
Okay. So I don't see any chats on Zoom either. So
Thank you.
thank you, Drew. Was there any questions you had about the emergency personal leave, Russ, or did you just?
One thing that maybe you can talk about. I think that also happened is a change in the number of official days.
Oh, yeah.
Previously, there's 2 days in a row, which lined up with like that you talk every year. With other changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Exactly.
Without having more than the 3, that's the thing that then you have to. That's what you're in that 3. And the other rules about like then you can take official days and then vacation. 5%.
I think the percentage has gone away. I don't think that's true anymore. If I remember correctly. I think the percentage is gone. Yeah, because we were coming into like Climel, it was like one person. So like I think that was a change made. I think if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. But yes, correct. Was it still in there? Oh, okay. Okay, all right, my bad. Write it down for next year. Okay.
So on that note, the comment that you made about the sick bank creating more guidelines and then that way, is that something that would be made available to the full staff or how would, just a personal curiosity, I was told, how would you access or apply for those things? Is that something that's being communicated to the teachers?
Good. Yes. Good. Very good question. In fact, I forgot to mention a couple of things to do with that. So first, yes, the guidelines will be communicated out once that team meets. They'll communicate it out in August, I believe, is what we said. They will send those guidelines out, and they're due to re-meet again twice a year. So they'll re-meet again January, February-ish, and review those guidelines. Are they working? Are they not working? That sort of thing. And then they'll do that every year that this is in place. The second thing is they'll also communicate in October and March each year, if I remember correctly, how many days are left. So previously, no one knew how many, like, do I apply? Oh, no days are left. Well, I just wasted that time applying. Oh, no, there are some days left. So if you need to apply, now's the time. So those will be communicated as well. So as part of that, that should be communicated. Okay, this is the actual process to apply. It is basically just a form, but yes, that's how to get that form, where to find it. That's otherwise, I'm staying around. I'm hanging around for the next 15 minutes or so. If you have some one-on-one questions you would like to ask, please feel free. Amy, Amber, Jessica Northern are in the back. Jessica's in the back. That can help you guys as well if you guys have questions for them. Otherwise, I really, really appreciate you guys coming by. Communicate as best you can with your teacher group, some of the changes, and I'd appreciate it. Otherwise, don't forget to vote. Thank you guys.